Phyllis lived with her father. They were very happy together, apart from her father was very, very cranky, so he would never let Phyllis out of the house on her own. Now, despite this fact, Phyllis still managed to get a marriage proposal from Humphrey Gould, one of the richest men in the area. Her father was so pleased with her. Now, they were very happy together, but after a while, Humphrey had to go and work in London with his father. Now, Phyllis was very sad to see him go, and she went down to the bottom of the garden to continue one of her favourite pastimes, which was sitting on the garden wall. Now, one day, while she was sitting on the wall, a melancholy hussar walked by. Now, this was a very depressed soldier, seeing as there was a war on with King George, and he recruited people from all over Europe. He was walking along, he saw Phyllis, he carried on walking. Now she thought he looked so sad that she would have to find him and talk to him to see what was wrong. So a few days later, she spotted him at the market, and they talked about things. She found out that his name was Matthias, and he was from Germany, and he was very homesick. He wanted to go home so he could take care of his sick mother. After a while, they didn't just talk about Germany, they talked about other things, many other things, and eventually they fell in love. Now, Phyllis was starting to feel guilty because she was still engaged to Humphrey, and she knew that Humphrey was an honourable man. And although there were rumours that he was playing the field in London, she didn't believe it because he was so honourable. He wouldn't do that to her, so she couldn't do it to him. So she tried to walk away, but Matthias persuaded her. She tried again, but he persuaded her back. And eventually, they decided they would elope together. They would go to Germany and look after Matthias's dear mother. They arranged to meet. They would get a boat. They'd go to the Isle of Wight, where they could get another boat to Germany. But Matthias's friend Peter would have to come along. Yes, Peter's a bit short. Now, that night, they all went home. And Phyllis, when she was on her way to meet Peter and Matthias, had to hide in the bushes suddenly, because there was Humphrey getting out of a carriage, talking to the driver about a present that he'd brought Phyllis. All of a sudden, Phyllis felt really guilty for running off and attempting to elope with Matthias. Humphrey had been faithful to her, so she would have to be faithful to Humphrey. She ran home, went in her room, and in the morning when Humphrey dropped by, she came downstairs as if she knew nothing. She sat there with Humphrey and her father. Humphrey gave her a wonderful gift, a massive mirror, which was gorgeous. But afterwards, he explained that this gift was due to him cutting off the engagement. He was now engaged to another girl in London. Turns out Humphrey wasn't so honourable after all. Phyllis was distraught. This meant that Matthias and Peter had gone to Germany without her, as they couldn't have waited, because if they were caught, they would have been shot. She ran down to the bottom of the garden, hopped back on her wall, and opposite in the field, she saw the soldiers. And she saw them line up 2 men, and the officer got out a gun and shot them dead. Phyllis was distraught, because it wasn't just any 2 officers, it was Matthias and Peter. Turns out they got in their boat, and they were halfway to the Isle of Wight when they took a wrong turn. And they kept on sailing, and while they thought they'd reached the Isle of Wight, actually they were still in England and were caught and arrested as deserters. Wow. Phyllis tended to their graves every day, so upset that she'd lost them, until finally one day she joined them. And that is the sad story of the melancholy hussar of the German Legion. The end.